Thank you very much, Finn. And Finn has done an amazing job there because he came to my surname, which turned out to be the bigger linguistic challenge than Thuan's, and he cleared the hurdle brilliantly. So thank you very much. Thuan Pham, extraordinary job at one of the most extraordinary companies on earth, making waves around the world. I come from London, where Uber has been a constant source of excitement and controversy for many years. I'm going to start with a really naive question. So, Uber's magic sauce, the very basis of the business, the very basis of the innovation, is the app which connects drivers to customers. And I'm going to be really naive and say that app was created before you arrived at the company, and you're still one of the very early employees at the company. Developed years ago. Your job is pretty simple. All you have to do is keep it ticking over. Not much to it, right?
That's what all my family members say ever since I joined the company. It seemed to work. What do they need you for? So, yeah, but my answer to them and to everyone is it's like you look at the iceberg, right? The stuff that above the waterline is only about 10% of it, right? Most of the mass of that iceberg is underneath the waterline. And for our technology stack, it's very similar. If you look at the app, it's really cool, it's sexy, it's very intuitive. You know, you understand how things work. You push a button, you get a car. You push a button, you know, food get delivered to you, all that. But underneath that, to make that work beyond that, you know, that app is a lot of technology.
Right? And presumably, users at first, I know as a user, at first, users are bewitched by it and think this is incredible. And very quickly, they get used to it and say, hey, those little cars that are circling around, they're not really there. This is not happening. So you've constantly, I suppose, got to improve.
Well, when you open the app, and we basically show the nearest 8 cars around the position.
And they're really there, are they?
They're there. They're practical. Of course, they are always a little time delay. You know, that was the last time we know they were there, and it could be a 15-second delay, 30-second delay from where they actually are, but they're actually definitely in the vicinity. And what happened is, underneath all the technology underneath the app, is the first thing you see is the positioning of the car, the matching, right? Who are the riders, where that person is located, where are the nearest car, and it's not just the nearest car in terms of the flying distance, but it's actually based on routing, right? You could be the nearest car, but heading away from that passenger on the one-way street that will take much longer to loop back. So the algorithm factored all of that stuff in. Lately, we even have features where we match the drivers and rider based on safety criteria, right, to increase the safety of our platform as well. And then beyond that, there's routing, right? And there's tracking of the trip as it make progress. Then you have to have billing and payment. You have to bill the riders and pay the drivers. Then you have all the analytics behind that to do fraud detections. You do all of these things, all the technology that actually make just that very simple app really work.
What's complicated about the business is these different constituencies the business has got to please. Drivers, customers, investors, regulators.
Yes.
Are you clear, as the man effectively in charge of the app, who your core audience is, who you've got to make it better for? Because the balance between drivers and customers is incredibly important to the drive towards profitability. Even in a technology team, have to serve multiple masters. Right? Clearly, our riders and drivers are very important to us. Right? Without our drivers are our direct customers because they are the ones subscribed to the platform, right? You know, generating revenue on the platform. The riders are technically their customers, right? We are the market maker, the platform in between that actually facilitate and make the transaction happen. Of course, we operate in many cities around the world, hundreds of cities around the world, and we have to always be mindful of regulations that we have to comply with.
So we have to serve that interest as well.
When have you got when have you got it wrong in terms of the app?
Well,
and which at some stages, drivers have felt that the balance was against them.
well, I'm not sure if it's the app. Where do we have wrong? I think one of the things that we do is sometimes we have a product such as Black Car, which drivers really love at a time, right? And then when we release the next level of product, Uber X, it's much cheaper price. It tends to cannibalize part of the premium product that we had, and then some drivers got unhappy. And also depends on times of day. The prices fluctuate based on the dynamic of the market. Some drivers feel like they are making really good money at some times and not so much at other times. So there's a lot of these fluctuations. It's very, very hard to put a pin on it.
And does the feedback, which obviously is constant, come to you in the technical team when people think it's going wrong, the balance is wrong? There are waves of, you can see it on Twitter, customer dissatisfaction. I ordered an Uber, it cancelled. It's not fair. I'm being deceived by the company.
Well, I don't think the company ever deceived anyone. But you look at the Twitter. But if you look at the, I can't comment on any specific Twitter message. But if you look at the amount of volume that we
how much pressure that puts on you, does that feedback come through to the team designing the app?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Right. When our customers cannot get a ride because of driver cancellations or when search get too high and that's kind of price them out of that ride, we certainly feel that pain, and we certainly engineer the system as much as we can in terms of product features, reliability, so that we optimize that to ensure that as many people can ride as possible and as many people can drive as and earn as much as possible with their time.
Now you're facing increasing competition in my city again in London. The Indian app Ola is just arriving. Mm-hmm. To what degree do you think the quality of your app versus the quality of their app will be decisive?
I think in the long run, let's say if you subtract out all the incentive, right? Then the product, which is the app and the service behind that, I think in the long run, the one with the better product and better service would win in the long run, right? And
is that
true? Of course, in the short term, you can always buy market share by giving a lot of incentive and drive up your market position.
Is that true? I look back some years to the London market again, and there was an app called Halo, which was really good, and people said that was fantastic. That was a company that raised $150 million in the UK, and that was seen as an extraordinary amount of money. Then Uber came along, and Uber ended up raising something like $8 billion. Isn't actually the difference the sheer weight of capital behind you, that you don't have to be, you're given more time to be the winner than people with less access to capital? In other words, access to capital is the key rather than technology.
If we had that, we had the $8 billion. If we did not build the right product, people wouldn't use us, though, right? So I think I remember the competition with Halo. As far as I know, right, people in London really like the Uber brand and Uber service and Uber rides, and that's why we had very significant growth there. And I believe fundamentally competition is actually very healthy. We have to compete fiercely everywhere that we operate, here in the US, in India, in London, in Europe, in Middle East, in some arena. We have to back out of that, such as China and Southeast Asia, after fierce competition. So I think ultimately competition is actually healthy because it actually benefit the user of the service, both the riders and the driver side.
Do you think you're going to have to give up on some other markets? You've mentioned some markets you've given up on already.
I hope not. I think our CEO basically are have been very public about how strong we are in all the market that we currently are, and we intend to compete very well, and we intend to either be the number one or number two in all the markets.
Maintaining startup velocity is the title of this session. You could call that moving fast and breaking things, and that kind of sums up what happened in the early stages of Uber, and that caused a lot of problems. When you had a very public change of leadership, a very big change of tone. Has that affected what you do? Are you less inclined to break things now than maybe you were under the leadership of Travis Kalanick?
Well, every company grows, and under Dara, our number one mantra and cultural norm is we do the right thing. So if you look at
does that
all
suggest
about
you did the wrong thing before?
No, that doesn't imply that, right? So
really,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, I'm a technologist, right? I focus most of my time on building technology with the engineering team, and we basically put our heart and soul and skills into building the right product set to actually service customer. Now, if you are in a very early stage and you have to disrupt, particularly in market and industry, every disruption requires challenging some existing norms and rules, right, that are antiquated. You then look back at civil rights movement, any kind of disrupt status quo a little bit. Now, some of it might be right, some of it might be wrong. But I'm looking forward to you're asking the question about our cultural norms of doing the right thing. Under Dara, we absolutely have been extremely, rigid and careful about following, rules and regulations and do the right thing by our riders and drivers and our policymakers, and that's what we focus on. But from the technology standpoint, we still move incredibly fast and break lots of things all the time when it comes to the product stack, right? It looked really calm on the surface because you open the app and it seemed to work all the time. But we are launching thousands of changes to our live site every single day. And with that kind of velocity, whether it's configuration changes or code changes or feature launches or experimentation, and many of those things don't work well and break, but you have to learn from that breakage and you move forward very, very fast and course correct on those things. But those things are completely mostly invisible to the public who actually use our service. And for us in technology, we're still moving incredibly fast, and we do break ourselves lots of times, sometimes multiple times during a day.
Now, the key message from Dara Khosrowshahi lately has been about the path to profitability. Is that dependent on what you do as technologists, or is it more dependent on bigger strategic decisions about, for instance, what commission you take from drivers, that kind of area, what countries you pull out of? Is technology going to take you to profit?
Absolutely, technology is one key part of that. Right now, for a company this diverse and this large, there is no single bullet. I think that many parts of the company has to be part of that solution. For example, if you give too much incentive, then you burn too much money, then you're very far away from profitability. If you don't offer any incentive at all, then you lose market share and you can't grow, right? So that's on the business side. And on the operation side, how efficient you are, how much more you can do with what you have, increase our effectiveness, our capability, our leverage, right, and improve our bottom line. And from the product and technology perspective, incredibly important, because getting to profitability alone is not the only thing we worry about. We all worry about getting to profitability while driving sustained growth for years and decades to come. And that has to come from product innovation. What product can we invent that open new market, that bring a cheaper, more economical way for people to move around the world beyond what we have today? We have today is carpooling is the cheapest one. Well, can we do higher capacity vehicle like bus, and can we partner with transit agencies around the cities around the world to actually help with that? there are many, many things that we experiment with that could potentially even open up the market for growth. Because what we were looking for is not simply profitability, because profitability with no growth is not all that interesting, and that's not what we're after. We want
But
profitability.
one day you might be profitable. One day you might be profitable.
In fact, if you look at our earning in our ride sharing, we already demonstrate that we are profitable. Right now, there are other parts of the business that are fast growing still that we have to fund as a company that cause us to be overall not quite profitable yet, but we already put the marker down where Dara already promised the world that by the Q4 of this year, 2020, for that quarter, we will reach profitability. And what I'm more looking beyond that is how do we get to that point and continue to grow, forever. And that's will require a lot of technology and a lot of innovation.
Now, what's interesting about this is a couple of years ago, it seemed that the message from Uber is that profitability would actually depend on autonomy, on effectively taking the drivers out of the equation, and obviously removing a huge amount of cost that way. I know you. It seems strange that you're the Chief Technology Officer, but you're not responsible for the whole autonomous vehicle project. But why has that changed? Why is it no longer seen as that is the only path to profitability?
I don't recall who said what, but I don't think that the only path to profitability has to be to driverless car. Now, any opinion I have about driverless car, since I'm not responsible for it, is from the perspective of a casual, amateur observer, right? So I think in the future of autonomous vehicle, it could be however many years down the road, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, when it reaches scale and all that, it could bring in a whole new level of, it could open up and unlock the new generations of transport mode, right? And possibility that is very, very cheap because these vehicles can be utilized at all hours of the day and all that. But I think that future is still pretty far away. But that cannot be the only path that we all get to profitability. In fact, many of our company in this space is already getting close to profitability.
But your company has been spending vast amounts on that mission. Has that diverted cash from what you would still regard as the core mission, getting the basic technology which makes the whole system tick more smoothly?
I trust the leadership of our company to make the proper investment and allocation. And then from the technology stack for the core of the company, ride sharing, food delivery, all that, I think we have sufficient resources to get what we need done.
How important, more broadly, is AI, machine learning, in what you're doing? It is big. The last 5 years, I have not met a single company that doesn't say AI is core to its business. Quite often, those claims seem to be massively overblown. But how important is it to you?
AI is a pretty hot area and pretty hot buzzword these days. We do employ machine learning techniques in many parts of our the product stack. In some ways that is actually not very important but not visible to the public, right? For example, we use machine learning technique to do lots of fraud detection because there's lots of fraud that happen on a platform as large as ours when we're doing 20, 25 million transactions a day, right? And money is changing hands and all that stuff. There's a lot of fraud pattern, and we use machine learning to help with that. We use machine learning to help us optimize routings and all that stuff in the hope to always aiming to decrease pickup time that actually improve customer experience. And then there are all these things that we can do, but it's not. Our whole company is not about AI. We're using AI to actually enhance what we do.
And I was talking to somebody who started a very well-known AI company a few days ago, and he said back in 2010 you could get AI experts for very little money because they were still emerging from the AI winter. Now they're all on six-figure starting salaries. Is that another pressure on the business, just getting the hold of the right talent?
Well, I think there's certainly a bit of a price premium on people with really deep AI expertise. Right? There are lots of engineers who claim to work on AI, whether they just touch a little bit of it, right, and they have it on the resume. But for the people who have really deep expertise in AI, yes, it does cost a little bit more, but I think it's worth it because actually it opened up new techniques for us to really improve our performance capabilities in a way that we wasn't achievable before.
And what sort of talent are you looking for and are you attracting? I mean, we've seen in Silicon Valley people move from Google to Facebook to Uber as each company has become fashionable. Is that still happening? Are you still recruiting?
We have a tremendous, great set of engineers and a very high talent bar that rivals some of the best companies in this valley or anywhere. So we're really proud of that, and we can, at this point, still able to recruit very, very, very good talent. We do also lose some, right, to all these other companies that you mentioned as well. But I think that's just the nature of the valley. People these days actually move around quite a bit more than when I was, growing up in this industry a couple of decades ago.
One growing feature of why people choose to work for certain companies is reputation. Now, Uber has been a company that's been much admired in many ways. Quite often it's not a company that's loved. How important is it to you that people should love Uber?
Well, of course, I love people to love Uber. I think people love the service, right? Certainly, because we see a lot of usage of our product. Our engineer, when they interview with us, really, really love their team and the company. I can say that unequivocally, right? That's why our retention rate is really high, our talent bar is really high, our recruitment is very, very effective. And a lot of it is because we actually do build a very good, strong engineering culture with great talent that people are actually empathetic and helpful to each other. And they have really meaningful work that they do. We all shows up every day voluntarily because while we can go work anywhere else, because the mission that we are on is really important. What we do is impacting 25 million lives a day, right? And improve it for the better. People have the convenience of being push a button and go anywhere they want to in a moment's notice, food delivered to them. People who are in between job or underemployed can get on the platform and drive. All these things, we feel like we actually bring a lot of value to people through what we do, and that's part of the stickiness.
We're running out of time. Just a final question. Are you personally prouder of working for Uber these days than you may have been 5 years ago? There has been a culture change at Uber. Do you feel better about the company now than you did then?
I feel just as good about a company now than I did then, right? The company went through many phases that I'm equally proud of. The early stage was just make things work when the product market fit was so good, then you have this hyper growth. And then when you get to global expansion at a very rapid pace, that requires a different set of learning, a different set of problems you have to solve at scale with very little time. Even the crisis year, there was a lot of learning there too, right? Testing all of our commitment and resiliency, right? And grit, take it to the limit. And then the rebuilding phase from 2017 after data arrived to the moment of the IPO is another very interesting phase of challenge in the company, full of learning, at least for me and for many in the organization. And now we're embarking on the new phase here where how do we get to profitability and sustain growth for decades to come, right? And what kind of innovation do we do to kind of unlock that so that we aspire to be the next Amazon of the world? That chapter is yet to be written, and I'm incredibly excited about this. And I'm proud of every phase of the company, and that's part of the journey. I would not have traded this for anything else.
Great to hear from you, Thuan Pham. Thank you very much indeed.